Okay, so we're going to do a greatest common factor and a least common multiple using factor trees and Venn diagrams. So how do you use a Venn diagram to find the greatest common factor and the least common multiple? Well, this is based on the idea that we can do the prime factorization. We did factor trees last term where we found the prime factorization of numbers. If I do the prime factorization of 18, I'm going to get 3 and 6, and this is going to be 2 and 3. And so I can say that my 3 and my 2 and my 3 are the prime factorization of 6. I can do the same thing again here with 30 and say this is going to be 5 and 6, and 6 is 2 and 3. And again, I'll circle the factors. These are my prime factorization of 30. And so I'm going to go over here. I'm going to list them down. I'm going to do this in like dark blue so I can see it. This is going to be 3 times 2 times 3 for 18 and 5 times 2 times 3 for 30. Okay, so that gets us started. All right, so since I know that this is, make sure I've got this right. I'll do it in red. I've got my 3 times 3 times 2. Any combination, any order is fine because we're using the commutative property of multiplication. So 3 times 3 times 2 is 18, and 5 times 3 times 2 is 30. What we want to do is figure out what two numbers that 18 and 30 have in common. So when I'm looking at this, I'm going to say that, I'll do again, darker color. I'm going to say that they both have a 2 in it and they both have a 3 in it. And we're going to put those in the space that's overlapping. So the space that's overlapping of these circles is this space right here. This is where the two circles overlap. So I'm going to color that in. And we're going to write down the two numbers that these, or the two factors that these two numbers have in common. And I'm going to put this in, I don't know, we'll go here dark again. The two numbers they have in common are 3 and 2, so we're going to go 3 and 2. And what factor does 18 have that 30 does not? Well, that's a 3. And the 30 has a 5 that 18 does not. Okay. So at least we've sort of organized our thoughts a little bit. Again, when I'm doing this, I'm sort of doing this as if I were teaching this to a young crowd. So I'm doing all of the steps that I would do if I were in a grade school classroom, just so I can sort of model what that would look like for you. Okay, so now that we have our prime factorization, again, where this is 3 times 3 times 2, and this is 5 times 3 times 2. And we decided that 18 has a 3 that 30 doesn't, and that 30 has a 5 that 18 doesn't. And we'd already done this earlier where we said that this overlapping space in the middle was a 3 and a 2. Okay. So when we're looking at our circles, we're saying that this circle here are all the numbers that multiply together to make 18. And then we're saying that this circle here, well, this is the circle that when I multiply all these numbers together, they're going to multiply to 30. Okay. So when I'm looking at this, I'm saying I want to get all the numbers that multiply to 18 within that green circle. So that means that I can put this 3 over here inside the circle for 18. And if I multiply those numbers together, I get 3 times 3 times 2, and that's going to give me 18. And then my 5, this 5 over here, needs to be in my purple circle because all the numbers inside my purple circle are going to multiply together to make 30. So I'm going to put my 5 over here. And when I look inside my purple circle, I can say 3 times my 3 times my 2 and my 5. Well, I multiply those together and I'm going to get 30. Okay, so I've filled in my Venn diagram so that I can start using this to figure out what my greatest common factor and my least common multiple is. Okay. So here's our completed. Make sure I still have this on pencil. Okay. Make sure I have all of my stuff in my Venn diagram completed. I had completed this ahead of time, and we're going to use this to figure out what our least common multiple and our greatest common factor are, and this would be an opportunity to have a discussion in your classroom about what do you think it might be. Again, there's a way to engage students. They can talk about it, think about it. Maybe somebody in the room is familiar with these words. Maybe they're not, but it's a way for them to engage in the thought process. And when they do this, students tend to remember it better. So it might be a good practice for you if you're a little removed from these concepts to make a guess on how we're going to do this. Okay. So my greatest common factor, I'm going to find the space in the middle. So I'm going to go like this. Let's get this. My greatest common factor is this stuff right here. And I'm going to look down here and say my least common multiple is going to be all of this stuff in here. Okay, so when I'm doing my greatest common factor, I can say that I'm going to multiply my 2 times my 3 together and get 6. And when I do my least common multiple, I'm going to be able to multiply my 3, let me do this again, my 3 times my 2 times my 3 times my 5. And this is going to give me 90. Okay.